In Chapter 1, a young wolf cub endures a harsh beginning as men kill his family and capture him and his siblings for dog fights. The cub witnesses his brother's death and suffers brutal treatment in captivity. The perspective then shifts to the protagonist receiving a message from a cautious young page named Ash, who delivers a secret scroll hinting at a new mission involving political intrigue. The protagonist is tasked with adopting a disguise and gathering intelligence at a Winterfest celebration, reflecting on past exploits. As he cares for his wounded friend, the Fool, they discuss their past, his family, and unresolved guilt. In Chapter 2, Fitz prepares to disguise himself as Lord Feldspur to gather intelligence at a Winterfest celebration. Chade tutors him on his targets, 6 nobles suspected of illicit dealings and bribery, and equips him with details about their preferences. Fitz immerses himself in the festivities, mingling and eavesdropping as Chade instructed. He finds useful information, including tips from a young trader and a Bingtown captain about tax evasion and trade opportunities. The festive atmosphere stirs Fitz's longing for his daughter Bee, whom he misses deeply. Despite his success, he feels isolated, yearning to connect with her across the distance. In Chapter 3, Bee regains consciousness outside her ravaged home, Withywood's, where she observes the intruders who have brutally killed her kin. The attackers, using mental fog to pacify everyone, specifically seek Bee. She attempts to intervene when Shun struggles, but is quickly subdued. Dwalia, the attackers' leader, asserts that Bee must come with them or die. They load Bee and Shun onto a sleigh as Bee realizes her people have relinquished her to the attackers. As they depart, Bee notices her friend Perseverance hidden in the trees, silently witnessing her forced departure. In Chapter 4, Fitz finds the Fool in a hidden room, wounded and weakened from past torture. The Fool reveals he has a son who could change the world. Fitz tends to his wounds, using the skill to draw out poison, but this takes a toll on him. Chade interrupts, concerned for Fitz's health, and reflects on the Fool's dire condition. Chade introduces Ash, an observant orphan with a dark past, to assist Fitz. Later, Fitz realizes he's taken on some of the Fool's wounds through their skill connection, a mysterious effect he keeps secret as he seeks rest and recuperation. In Chapter 5, Fitz tends to the Fool's injuries, cleaning and dressing his wounds, while the Fool reflects on his painful past in captivity. He reveals how the servants manipulated his fate, creating a false white prophet, but now fear the true one. Fitz discusses his bond with the Fool and the strange ease with which he healed him, speculating that their connection may have merged their essences. The Fool hints at a deeper mystical bond possibly linked to dragons. Despite their situation, the Fool finds solace in boredom and humor, while Fitz prepares to meet Lady Ketrican, leaving the Fool in his vulnerable state. In Chapter 6, Lady Patience defends the 6 duchies from the Red Ships, while Queen Ketrican returns pregnant and takes her place as queen. Fitz, disguised as Lord Feldspur, discusses Bee's progress and the Fool's torment with Ketrican. Webb, bonded with a kestrel named Soar, suggests that Ketrican bond with a crow, an animal seeking companionship after losing its wit partner. Fitz reluctantly agrees to consider it. The conversation shifts to Bee, and Webb proposes speaking with her to assess her magical potential. Ketrican reveals the princes have the skill but no strong talent. Fitz leaves, pondering the crow. In Chapter 7, Fitz learns that Nettle is pregnant and secretly married to Riddle, with their child potentially being the heir to the Outesland throne. Riddle urges Fitz to bring Bee to Buckkeep for her safety and education. Fitz, conflicted about his role as a father, resolves to go. Meanwhile, the Fool, still recovering, expresses his despair. On his journey, Fitz is pursued by a mob after a crow sent by Webb identifies him as the witted bastard. Fitz eventually reaches Buckkeep, where he tends to the injured crow, which reveals it has white feathers setting it apart. In Chapter 8, tensions rise at Winterfest when Queen Eliania reveals that Nettle Farseer, FitzChivalry's daughter, is a Farseer princess and pregnant. The announcement shocks the nobility, and Starling Birdsong, a minstrel, is called upon to sing a ballad about FitzChivalry. She performs a moving song recounting his life and sacrifices from his early days as a bastard to his death and legacy. As Starling finishes, FitzChivalry, disguised as Lord Feldspur, is revealed to the crowd, causing shock and emotion. King Dutiful proclaims FitzChivalry's return and legacy, finally welcoming him home, ending his long exile. In Chapter 9, Fitz receives key information from Jek about Kelsingra, including details on Elderling archives and a secret well. After a confrontation with Rapskull, Jek is escorted from the city. Fitz reflects on his troubled identity, especially regarding his daughter Bee. His servant Ash reveals Chade's help after his mother's death. Fitz attempts to heal the Fool's blindness, but despite their efforts, there is no improvement. The Fool shares his doubts about his vision. Fitz helps the Fool care for a crow named Motley, drawing parallels between the crow and the Fool's own misfit nature. In Chapter 10, Fitz prepares for a dinner at Buckkeep, where he is publicly acknowledged as Prince FitzChivalry Farseer. During the evening, he navigates the complex dynamics with nobles, aware of growing expectations. Chade secretly enlists Sildwell, a former apprentice, as a messenger. Sildwell's erratic skill leads to troubling news about a fire at Withywood's and Lady B's disappearance. Fitz, fearing for her safety, decides to leave immediately. He gathers supplies with Chade's help and departs on horseback, determined to uncover the truth behind the fire and ensure B's safety, despite the unclear messages and ominous signs. In Chapter 11, FitzChivalry arrives at Withywood's to find it ransacked and the stables burned. Perseverance, a stable boy, reveals that invaders took B and Lady Shun, leaving the stables in flames and killing several. Fitz suspects the attackers are connected to Chalcedon and Clares. A royal messenger, Sildwell, shares news from Lord Chade and mentions a strange fog affecting the area. Fitz suspects someone has used the skill to cloud his household's minds. He searches the estate for clues, discovering strange behavior and a cat's cryptic remarks about the raiders. Determined, Fitz prepares for the next steps to uncover the truth. In Chapter 12, Shasim and Shun, in captivity, travel through a snowy landscape with their captors. Shasim grows wary of Odessa, who tends to them coldly. Shun remains distant, and Shasim realizes their captors see them as a boy. Shasim contemplates their situation and feels capable of fighting back. Dwalia later explains the path, a guiding principle that must be followed for the world's safety, revealing Shasim's rare ability to foresee tipping points in events. Dwalia hints at Shasim's role as a catalyst, someone who can influence the future, a power both daunting and dangerous. In Chapter 13, FitzVigilant learns of his daughter B's abduction and reflects on the memory loss among the survivors of the raid. Chade, Fitz's mentor, accuses him of neglecting his responsibilities and reveals his hidden family connections. Fitz suspects the raiders are after the Fool, not Shun's family. Together, they plan to use the skill-blocking technique employed by the raiders to recover B. Meanwhile, Chade opens up about his son Lance's troubled past and his failed relationships. The chapter ends with preparations to uncover the truth and rescue their loved ones, despite the painful consequences. In Chapter 14, the aftermath of the Withywood's raid is revealed. Lant recalls how raiders, under magical influence, killed Oak and terrorized the household while he was unable to intervene. Chade explains that a skill suggestion made them forget the events. The raiders, led by a woman in white, were searching for a pale boy, and later took B, believing she was the unexpected son from the White Prophecies. Perseverance, now sworn to, FitzChivalry Farseer vows to care for his family. Chade, after learning of the attack on the stables and messenger birds, urges action to find any survivors. In Chapter 15, Fitz and Chade continue their search for B and Shine, struggling with guilt and frustration. They plan to consult the Fool and head to Gallows Hill, leaving Thick behind. Upon arrival, they are ambushed by rousters. After a brutal fight, Fitz kills one guard while Chade captures Crafty, who reveals that a man from Buckkeep offered money to kill Chade. They learn the man had planned the attack before they left for Gallows Hill. Chade is injured, and they use the skill to return to Buckkeep for healing. Fitz remains focused on finding his daughter. In Chapter 16, the servants welcome a child, known as a Shasim, with patience and care. Parents may feel sadness, but must be encouraged to understand the child's destiny. The child, possibly an infant or older, will be cherished and educated. The narrative shifts to Chad, sick and cared for by Shun, who is fearful of others discovering Chad's true identity. They travel through a town where Shun fears for their safety. Chades begins shedding skin, signaling progress, but they worry about turning white like the dead. Dwalia offers a book and pen to Chade, prompting caution. In Chapter 17, Fitz struggles with his skill pillar journey, emerging disoriented with Chade, who is gravely injured. Nettle and Dutiful help Fitz regain control, though he feels guilty. He learns Chade is alive but severely hurt, and the Rousters are aware of their attack. Fitz is told the Fool is in critical condition, found nearly dead after escaping his room. After a failed attempt to heal him, Ash uses a mysterious elixir to revive the Fool. The potion, believed to be stolen from a courier, is identified as dragon's blood, but its effects remain uncertain. Fitz seeks answers. In Chapter 18, the Bingtown Traders Council condemns dragon body part trafficking, urging traders to avoid it. Fitz worries about the dragon's blood Ash gave the Fool, but the Fool shares its effects: enhanced vision, healing, and dreams of power. Fitz reveals the abduction of Bee and Shun by the servants, and the Fool suggests Bee has prophetic powers. He believes the servants will take her to Claris, where they will try to exploit her. Fitz is determined to recover her and considers strategies, while the Fool reflects on possible prophecies regarding Bee's importance. The chapter ends with Fitz deep in thought. In Chapter 19, Fitz continues his mission to rescue Bee. He meets Captain Foxglove, who pledges loyalty, and joins Chad, Ketrican, and King Dutiful. Chade's condition worsens, and he reveals that Bee was captured by the servants of the White Prophet. Nettle suggests blocking the invaders, while Fitz proposes using Webb's animal bonds. Jadis shares Shine's skill abilities and how she was sealed for protection. Meanwhile, a girl named Spark shares her tragic past and connection to Chade. As Chade's fever worsens, Fitz struggles with the skill's pull, and Nettle intervenes, urging him to stay away. In Chapter 20, Fitz is torn between his duty to protect Bee and his thirst for revenge against Claire's. He plans with the Fool to avenge the harm done, but prioritizes finding Bee, who is seen as valuable breeding stock for the servants. Fitz struggles with the emotional cost of taking lives for vengeance. He receives an update from the Rousters about their mission and is surprised by Perseverance's loyalty. Fitz instructs Patience to take care of Perseverance and warns him to avoid the Rousters, emphasizing that justice will be handled by others. In Chapter 21, Fitz struggles with weakness and hunger while traveling with Dwalia, Alec, and Vindelier. Tensions rise when Dwalia and Alec argue about how to cross a river, with Vindelier subtly influencing the decision. Fitz unknowingly reveals a dream of violence, alarming Dwalia. Later, Alec becomes enraged, threatening Fitz and Shun, even kicking Fitz. He accuses Dwalia of breaking their agreement, mocking her for not understanding the value of promises. He reveals his awareness of Vindelier's tricks, planning to manipulate and control him, while threatening to harm anyone who defies him. Alec asserts his dominance over the group. In Chapter 22, Fitz confronts FitzVigilant, who admits he didn't defend Thick due to lack of authority. The king dissolves the Rousters for mistreating Thick, and Fitz, frustrated by his orders to remain, consults with Chade and receives support from Foxglove for a stealthier approach. Fitz asserts his command over the remaining Rousters, assigning Foxglove to lead them with strict orders and warning of dismissal for failure. Preparing for his mission, Fitz plans to reclaim Bee and Shine, enduring Lance's insistence on joining despite his injuries. Fitz readies his supplies and, under the guise of a ride, heads out alone. In Chapter 23, Chade explains the portal stone creation, and Fitz, eager to save Bee, heads out with Fleeter. Lant, Perseverance, and Riddle join him, though Fitz resists their help. After taking a ferry, Fitz considers the risks of defying the king and contemplates a lethal plan. At their shelter, Fitz uses Karis Seed to stay alert and prepare. He checks on his allies, deadens his skill using Delvenbark, and quietly departs, leaving them to rest. As he and Fleeter push forward through the night, Fitz channels his determination into anger, intent on rescuing Bee and Shine. In Chapter 24, Bee experiences a recurring nightmare. In Alec's camp, Alec takes control over Vindelier, leading to tension with Dwalia's group. Alec and his men raid a town and begin tormenting the Luriks, targeting Odessa in particular. Shun urges Bee to escape, recognizing the increasing threat. As they attempt to flee, Dwalia protests, demanding Vindelier's aid, while chaos erupts among Alec's men. Dwalia's screams pierce the night, and an intense wave of fear immobilizes Bee and Shun. Finally, Shun helps Bee run as men shout orders to stop them, propelling them deeper into the dark forest. In Chapter 25, Fitz discovers signs of Bee's presence at a bloodied campsite, confirming she is missing and ill. He confronts Alec, who admits to hiring mercenaries and reveals their alliance with pale-skinned followers and the manipulation of Vindalier. Fitz's interrogation exposes the brutal treatment of captives, deepening his resolve to find B. A confrontation ensues with Alec, and Fitz is nearly killed until Perseverance, wielding Verity's sword, kills Alec. As chaos erupts with Chalcedean mercenaries fleeing, Fitz orders a search for B, though she and Shine remain unaccounted for. In Chapter 26, Fitz and Shun flee Dwalia, enduring harsh conditions before finding shelter by a stream. They are joined by Kerf, a soldier who offers help, but Shun is suspicious. The next day, they are ambushed by Dwalia's soldiers and Fitz is captured. Dwalia, determined to return Fitz to Claire's, orders her soldiers to take them to a stone. Dwalia uses a strange glove and a scroll, leading to a dangerous ritual. Fitz, realizing a chance to change things, bites Kerf's hand and pulls him into darkness, possibly altering Shun's fate. In Chapter 27, Fitz and Riddle search for B and Shine after the Chalcedean attack, but find no trace of them. Foxglove organizes a search for any remaining Chalcedeans with little success. Fitz reflects on his duties as a father and prince. At an inn, Fitz gets involved in a fistfight with his rousters, which results in 2 of them leaving. The next day, Fitz and Riddle encounter Shine, who has escaped but knows nothing of B's whereabouts. Shine reveals that B was taken into a stone by the attackers, deepening the mystery of her disappearance. In Chapter 28, the Duke of Pharaoh informs King Dutiful about a dragon's destruction of livestock and buildings. Shine reveals that B was taken by Chalcedean forces through a stone portal and killed Sula in self-defense. She also confesses that she shares Lord Chade as her father with Lant. The group searches for B, finding an abandoned camp and a skill pillar. Fitz, unable to use the portal due to blocked skill, sends Per to Buckkeep for help. Nettle arrives with a coterie, but they find nothing beyond the pillar. Nettle hopes B and others are just delayed, but the group fears they are lost. In Chapter 29, Fitz and Nettle return to Buckkeep after failing to find B. At a royal audience, Fitz admits responsibility for B's disappearance, but leaves out key details. The group mourns, and Kettrican comforts Fitz, urging him to rest. Fitz speaks with the Fool, who reveals concerns about Dwalia's use of a silver-tipped glove to steal the skill and take B into the skill pillar. Fitz is overcome with grief and anger, feeling disconnected from everyone. He considers his future, but is unsure of his next steps, aware that others may soon decide his path for him. In Chapter 30, King Dutiful removes Fitz from his assassin duties, affirming his role as Prince FitzChivalry Farseer. Fitz is relocated to new chambers, marking a life shift. He visits Chade, who has lost his ability to skill, and finds that Shine may have inherited his abilities. Fitz comforts the Fool, who plans to seek vengeance for their lost child B. Fitz agrees to accompany him when he's ready. Fitz focuses on rebuilding his skills and waits for better travel weather. He also begins researching Claire's, discovering a clue that will shape his future journey. In Chapter 31, Fitz prepares for a journey to Buckkeep, burdened by grief and guilt over B's disappearance. At Withywood's, he inspects repairs, encounters Perseverance, and learns of the emotional toll the raiders have caused. Fitz struggles with his grief, reflecting on memories of B and Molly. He reads B's journal, discovering her precognitive dreams and realizing the extent of her vision. Overcome with sorrow and anger, Fitz decides to seek vengeance, preparing himself for the journey ahead. He speaks to Nettle, who expresses understanding, and sets out to find the Fool, who has gone missing. In Chapter 32, Fitz prepares for his journey to Claire's with Perseverance. Chade urges him to take Lant and provides a map with skill portal locations, but Fitz insists on traveling alone, fearing for the Fool's safety. Despite the Fool's protests and emotional outbursts, Fitz leaves him behind, hoping the Fool will heal at Buckkeep. Fitz receives travel gear, including armor and a map from Kettrican, who acknowledges his departure. The farewell feast is filled with gifts and goodbyes, but the Fool does not attend. Fitz finally insists on leaving, rejecting offers to take others along and resolving to go on his own. In Chapter 33, Fitz prepares to leave for the Spice Isles, bidding farewell to Dutiful, Eliania, and others, though his parting with the Fool is silent. Traveling with Lant and Perseverance, Fitz navigates the cold mountain and finds solace in a frozen stone dragon, briefly connecting with Verity. He hunts a hare and returns to camp. Lant and Perseverance revealed that the Fool and a woman named Spark appeared at the camp, planning to use a skill portal to reach Kelsingra. The Fool warned Fitz not to follow. The chapter ends with Fitz uncertain of the Fool's intentions. In Chapter 34, Fitz reflects on the Fool and Spark's sudden departure, questioning their motives. The Fool and Spark return, traumatized from their journey through a skill portal. The Fool reveals they obtained dragon's blood, which allowed them to travel through portals. They arrived in Kelsingra, where Spark was attacked by a dragon. The Fool explains his connection to dragons and skill, revealing that his transformation began after touching the skill. The two recount their dangerous experience in Kelsingra, where they were pursued by a dragon and a mysterious man. Ultimately, they escape through the skill pillar. In Chapter 35, the group encounters a large injured bear scavenging their supplies. As they try to avoid conflict, the bear becomes aggressive, causing Fitz to mourn the loss of Bee's books and Molly's candles. After discussing their uncertain future, Fitz, Per, and Lant prepare to follow the Fool and Spark through a pillar, hoping to reach Kelsingra. They arrive in a new land and are confronted by a dragon and a scarlet-skinned elderling. The dragon senses Fitz's connection to a dragon, and they are forced to explain their presence and request an audience with the rulers of Kelsingra. In Chapter 36, Fitz arrives in Kelsingra and struggles with the skill. General Rapskull arranges an audience with King Rain where Fitz meets Queen Malta, Amber disguised as the Fool, and others. After a meal, Amber reveals her captivity and the harm done by Duke Ellic. Fitz heals Fron, Malta's son, easing his pain. Malta then asks Fitz to help other children in Kelsingra, though Fitz hesitates, unsure of his ability. Amber warns of the risks involved. Fitz agrees to try despite his uncertainty. Later, he drinks sweet sleep tea, seeking rest, and contemplates his painful past. In Chapter 37, Fitz wakes to the Fool's presence and is summoned by Queen Malta, but interrupted by General Rapskull, who accuses them of theft. King Rain intervenes, asserting their presence is by invitation. Fitz uses his skill to heal a dying child, and Amber warns him of its dangers. As he helps more children, Fitz struggles with the allure of his power. Tensions rise when Rapskull accuses Amber of stealing silver from the dragons, leading to chaos. The Fool is torn away, and the crowd swells, leaving Fitz struggling to stay upright amid the turmoil. In Chapter 38, Bee experiences a dream where a dragon protects her, promising to safeguard her when she emerges. She awakens disoriented, unsure of how to exist. Wolffather urges her to stand, and she slowly regains awareness of her body, feeling weighted down. A Chalcedonian man makes disturbing noises, and Bee struggles to free herself from a heavy fur coat. After realizing Dwalia is dead, she manages to escape, fleeing into a forest. As she runs, she hears Dwalia's voice urging others to capture her, but Bee seeks safety, determined to find refuge in the forest.